Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of BTP, Bravo Tango Papa. We're breaking the planes, scoring tutties, and putting six on the board while providing quality content on the sport that you and I love. Let's talk about what just happened. The 2018 NFL Combine, it came, it saw, it conquered, it's passed. We must talk about some of the people who made their money there. Who is on the rise? Whose stock fell? Let's discuss all this. Let's start with the quarterback position. Now, we have to start with Sam Darnold. He shows up, he runs, and he does all of the things that you ask him except for throwing the football. The drill is the most important part. Why doesn't he go out there and compete with the likes of Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Josh Rosen? Is it because of his elongated release? Or does he just want to wait till March 22nd when his pro day is? When he's in an environment that he can control? Is he getting news that he might be the first quarterback taken and was advised not to throw at the Combine? Possibly. But I look at Sam Darnold and I say, man, the competitor in you must just be telling you, go out there, throw the football, compete with the rest of your class. Because he went out there and he ran. And he ran like you would think he is. 4.85. That's what I would have thought Sam Darnold was. He's a mobile quarterback. He knows how to maneuver the pocket well. But he comes in and he doesn't end up throwing at the Combine, just raising some question marks about why. Is it a competitive issue? Doesn't seem like it, especially the way that he does play. You look at the other quarterbacks. Josh Allen. He showed his athleticism. Shows up 6'5", 237 pounds. Over 10-inch hands. Runs a 4.75. Jumps 33 and a half inches in the vert with just under a 10-inch broad jump. His three-cone, 6.9, sub 7. It's a solid athlete. And you look at him during the throwing portion of the drills. He looked pretty solid. Arm, it's very, very apparent, his arm strength. He knows he has it. And of course, when you have the time to utilize methodical movements in your drop back, where he doesn't have to worry about pre-snap reads, pressure, 5-6-man pressure, disguised coverages. It's just throw the football. And he thrives in that kind of environment. He does have the massive arm. He put it on display in front of the entire NFL. Now, I don't think all of his throws were pinpoint accurate, like draft media, especially big draft media, tries to make it out to be. But teams are going to salivate over his size and his arm because he just looks like a quarterback. And he could throw 70 yards and all of that jazz. But Josh Allen, you watch his tape, you see the inconsistencies with accuracy. You see how he struggles with the mental side of the game. But this quarterback race, who's going to be the first taken? It makes for great talk. It makes for great media coverage. And I love to just sit here and talk about it. I think about Josh Rosen. Now, I felt like he kind of had the jitters early on, some of his throws. He didn't seem like he was hitting that 7 route too well, which is really strange because he is, to me, by far the most polished passer in this class, and everyone says that. It's not a hot take by any means. But there seems to be this hate that is cultivated around Rosen. I think it is just out of proportion. Like this narrative that media is trying to push that he's this really selfish player because back when he was 18 years old, he was a rich kid coming out of school and he had all the attention in California. Sam Darnold didn't get any of it. And that he's too smart for his own good because he has his own opinions and some of them are affiliated with politics and people might not like that. I just think it's sort of unfair. I think his tape speaks for itself. If Rosen were to slip to, say, 15 like McShay has it right now, and color the Cardinals the luckiest franchise on the west side of the Mississippi. Because that would be great for them. Mayfield comes in, 6'1", 215 pounds, runs a 4.85 40. Now, does that concern teams because he is supposed to be the scrambler? I don't think so. He is quicker than he is fast. I love how he went into the drill, had that swagger about him, faking out notional safeties in the workout drills. You can tell he's diligent in his craft, and he really does enjoy playing football. Putting on a show. Now, I know Albert Breer reported that Mayfield rolled his eyes when asked about other quarterbacks in interviews, and it's rubbed a couple general managers the wrong way. I feel like Mayfield, you know what kind of personality he has. I don't think it's Johnny Manziel. I think it's such a lazy comparison. But he is somebody who is confident. Maybe borders the line of confident and cocky. But if a team buys into this kid, you can do a lot with him. He is mobile. The 4.85 40 does not concern me. Now, it's the same as Sam Darnold, but Baker has this narrative that he is the scrambler. I do think he is mobile in the pocket. He can make things happen with his feet. We've seen it time and time again. But it does not concern me. And speaking of mobile quarterbacks, we got Lamar Jackson, who did not run at the Combine. And I really think he could have shown his rare athletic ability for that position. But he was focused so much in the pre-draft process on improving this accuracy. Now, was this a mistake? Because he could have went there and really just flashed his athletic ability. Would it have fed into the narrative of him just being a wide receiver? Who knows? But he would have had the fastest 40-yard dash there. He would have beat out Quentin Flowers of South Florida, who had a 4.63. Lamar Jackson would have been in the 4.4s, and it would have been very fun to watch. But when it came to the throwing drills, I thought he showed inconsistency. Struggled with his accuracy with a few throws. Underthrew a few balls. His placement was a bit off. But over the last month or two, he's been tweaking his lower body mechanics, specifically his base, which he considered way too narrow. You could see that on tape. And he's also throwing to receivers he has never played with before. So context in this area is needed. So, let's just move him to receiver. I'm just kidding. But Lamar Jackson, pro day, something that so many people are going to be looking forward to. And all these quarterback-needy teams will be searching on March 30th to see if Lamar Jackson is their guy. And I'm intrigued. Let's move on to the running backs, though. Now, running backs, very funny. We know who just kind of absolutely blew it up. And we're going to talk about a lot of these positions using the Mock Draftable website. It's an incredible, comprehensive tool that combines players, I think dating back to like the 1999 draft, how they test athletically. It combines them all, and then it uses a percentage system to see how good certain players scored in comparison to every other player that has gone through this system. Now, the higher the percentage, the better for the player. You don't want to be in the bottom 5%. You want to be in the top 95%. Get it? Good. All right, so first, Saquon Barkley shows up, absolutely steals the show. Other than Shaquem Griffin, he is the talk of the Combine. He comes in at 6 foot, 233 pounds, and runs a 4.4, 41 vert, and 29 bench press reps while looking incredible in the on-field drills. And Saquon Barkley, going to go in the top 5. Everyone's talking about him potentially going number 1. I think the Browns are still going to go with a quarterback. Their issue over the last 10 years has been finding their quarterback. They have 5 legit quarterbacks to pick from. Why are they going to pass him up? And Saquon Barkley, one of the best athletes you are going to find at the running back position. He tested 93 percentile of the 40, 96 percentile of the vert. He's incredibly explosive. He doesn't do the broad jump, which frustrates me because I just wanted to see how well he would have done because we know he has that lower body explosiveness. But I don't think Saquon Barkley's Adrian Peterson. I do think he still struggles with vision sometimes. But I still love this athlete. He's going to be really good in this league, but he's not a fully polished prospect, and I don't have him as my number 1 prospect in the draft. I mean, I would have Quentin Nelson over him. But Saquon Barkley, you're not going to be disappointed in this player. I just think the Browns should find their franchise quarterback, something they've been looking for forever. And then we have good old Mr. Nick Chubb coming in and also testing in the 97th percentile of the bench press with 29 reps, same as Saquon Barkley. And the thing about Nick Chubb that we all know is he was an incredible high school athlete. There's pictures floating around the internet of him jumping, and it looks like he's an alien. Looks like he's Josh Sweat. #alien. But he suffers these devastating injuries, these knee injuries in college. Torn ACL, all these really, really bad stuff. Can he get back to that level of athleticism? And he comes in and he shows, yes, he can. Because at 5'10 and 7/8, 227 pounds. He runs a 4.52 40, which is solid. That is solid for that size. Comes in 7.09 3-cone, which is below the 50 percentile. But his vert is at 89 percentile, 38.5, and his broad is at 128 inches, which is 94th percentile. It's over 10 feet. So I'm glad Nick Chubb is still able to have that lower body explosiveness that he had back in high school. He also comes in and runs a faster 40 than Sony Michel, his teammate, who ran a 4.54, which kind of opens my eyes a little bit, because if you were to ask me, I would think Sony Michel would have a much faster 40 than Nick Chubb. He looks a lot faster on tape. It's just Sony Michel's more explosive, has more of that short area quickness. Nick Chubb's better at running 40 yards than Sony Michel. I'm very upset that Ronald Jones was injured in his first 40 attempt and wasn't able to test throughout the rest of this combine. We have to wait for his pro day, same day as Sam Darnold, which is March 22nd, so we will be waiting for that. Kalen Ballage comes in at 6'1", 228, puts 15 reps up, runs a 4.46, 33.5 vert, 10 feet, 2-inch broad jump. His 3-cone is sub 7, so those are pretty good athletic numbers. We saw him down at the Senior Bowl show off his receiving skills. Now, this opens up a lot of people's eyes, especially when he has this size and these athletic testing. The thing about Kalen, though, and he's going to have to explain this to teams, I'm sure he did at the Combine, is why wasn't he used in a featured role? Why did he only receive 157 carries in his senior year? All these kind of things are going to lead to people questioning, is he a full-time running back? Can he be trusted? What's his mental processing like? So that's going to be Kalen Ballage's big bugaboo. And we'll see if he's moved up with these solid Combine numbers up into the day 2 range. Because you also have guys like Rashad Penny, who ran a 4.46. Funny thing about Rashad Penny, he's got some personality. When I was down in Mobile at Media Day, I got to get to the stage where Rashad Penny was sitting by himself because everybody had already talked to him. So I wanted to ask him, everyone was asking him, oh, can you play in his own scheme? You played in a predominant running scheme, blah, blah, blah. All these boring questions. So I had to ask him a question that would take him off guard a little bit. That's just who I am, you know. So I asked him, hey, Rashad, who is your favorite? Or no, this is what I asked him. If you could be any mythological creature, what mythological creature would you be? And then I went on to name said mythological creatures. The unicorn, the centaur, the Pegasus. And right as I said Pegasus, he jumped and said, I would be a Pegasus. I asked him why he wouldn't want to be a unicorn, and he said, unicorns weren't for him. I thought that was a good thing, so I might call him Penny the Pegasus. But he got it done at the Combine with a 4.46, and I wanted to squeeze in that story about Mr. Rashad Penny. Then we get into the beast, Bo Scarborough. Bo Scarborough did a lot better at the Combine than I thought he was going to. Over 6'1", 228 pounds. Ran a 4.52 at that weight and that size. Now, he's an upright runner, and we know that, kind of in the mold of Latavius Murray. But his lower body explosiveness, a 40 on the vert, 129 inches, it's almost 11 feet on the broad jump. Test in the 93 and 95 percentiles, respectively. So I looked at Bo Scarborough. He might have moved up a little bit, because a lot of people were talking about him in the day 3. I still think he will be a day 3 pick. But if you need one of those backs, upright, Latavius Murray type of runner, he's going to be available. We saw him be successful on the biggest stage. And still, if he didn't break his leg against Clemson, I don't know if Clemson wins that game. The national championship game I'm talking about, of course. And then we got Darius Geist. Now, Darius Geist comes in 4.49 40, 31.5 vert. Wasn't wowing kind of numbers for the LSU Tiger. But you got to trust his 2016 tape, because in 2017, he did not have a healthy ankle. And again, like I talk about him, like I talk about Harold Landry, these guys need their ankles, man. So trust the tape that they put on that was really good. We know they've been struggling through injuries. And Darius Geist is going to be a beast in this league. Then Nyheim Hines. He takes the fastest 40 as predicted. So happy about Nyheim Hines doing that. I would have loved to see John Kelly run, though, but he opted not to. And I think I want to say I talked about that in the pre-Combine show. Because John Kelly, a lot of questions about his 40, about his breakaway speed. And he did not end up testing in that light. So that was kind of frustrating. But on to the wide receivers. Now, wide receiver group, the thing that's interesting about it is it doesn't have a true number one. Now, I would say Calvin Ridley is that, but I don't feel like a consensus, at least on draft Twitter, that there is a true number one. The Combine provided this platform for all of these intriguing prospects to separate, because there's a cluster of projected day 2, second, third round picks that were all clustered together. And these dudes come into the Combine, and they could have the potential to separate themselves. And I think DJ Chark really did that, and he's been doing that since the Senior Bowl. Because DJ Chark came in here and he he performed very well. Comes into the 40, runs a 4.34. It's top 95 percentile. The vert hits the 40 mark, top 92 percentile. Broad jump, 129 inches, top 91 percentile. He had a great Senior Bowl. I thought he did well in the practices as well. Comes in at 6'2", 199 pounds with over 32-inch arms. And DJ Chark, somebody that people were talking about maybe day 3 before the Senior Bowl, he's more than likely going to go in the second round now. He's really improved his stock. And another player that I feel like has improved his stock, but I haven't seen many people pounding the table for him outside of Brad Kelly, who works for Cover One. He's a great mind. Just follow him on Twitter. But outside of Brad, I haven't seen many people really beating the table for Dylan Cantrell. And Dylan Cantrell, out of Texas Tech, he had 71 catches this year, 816 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Those aren't great numbers. But he went into the combine. If you watch his tape, he has some nuance to his route running. He comes into the combine, and he really kind of shows up, figuratively and literally, because he's 6'2", 7/8 with 226 pounds. That is a big frame right there. Now, he doesn't run overly fast with a 4.59, but you got to take into context how big he is. But he comes in and does 130 inches, which is top 93 percentile on the broad jump. Jumps 38.5 on the vertical jump, top 85 percentile. And his 3-cone is 6.56. That's top 95 percentile. The kind of change of direction and balance and control he has to do that is absolutely ridiculous. Just for a comparison, some of the slot receivers that everyone is talking about in such a high esteem, like Christian Kirk, he comes in and runs a good 40, but his 3-cone was 7.09. That's not really that great, especially for the type of receiver that Christian Kirk is supposed to be in the slot, where you create that automatic separation out of your cuts. And Dylan Cantrell comes in here at 6'2", 226 pounds, and he runs that 3-cone. Very, very impressive. Plus, he put 18 reps up on the bench. He's a bigger guy, but he also gets it done in this aspect. I thought his tape, from the limited that I watched, he looked solid. And I think this is somebody that nobody's really talking about. I thought he had a really quietly good combine here. It's maybe somebody who's rising up boards. Again, this cluster of players. You could break the cluster up. Because I think Calvin Ridley's number 1, and then you have just a cluster of players. How are all these other guys doing? Antonio Callaway. Now, he's behind all of these other players, but I felt like he made at least a case for himself. We know the talent's there. It's just all of the off-field issues. He didn't play at all this year at Florida. I don't even think Florida really wanted him back this season. So he comes out for the draft because he just had so many issues at UF. But he runs a 40.441. It's top 83 percentile. Has a 34-inch vert, 121-inch broad. I don't know how the testing went when it came to how he did in the interview process and things of that nature. But I'm at least hearing buzz about him now. Whereas people were saying he was going to be undrafted because of all this off-the-field stuff before the combine. He gets the invite, which he's lucky about, and is able to put up solid numbers. Michael Gallup, another player a lot of people were buzzing about around the Senior Bowl. 10-2 in the broad, 36 in the vert. Not outstanding numbers, but they will suffice for him. He's not somebody who always wins with his athletic ability. Courtland Sutton. I thought he has excellent movement skills for a guy of his size. Now, Courtland Sutton is another player that a lot of people were mocking in the first round early on in the draft process. You don't see it as much now. But he comes into the combine, 6'3" 3/8", 218 pounds. Very, very big frame, good size, over 32-inch arms. Runs a 4.54. Not excellent, but again, take into context how big he is. His 3-cone, 6.57. Absolutely ridiculous for a man of this size. Broad jump, 124. Vert, 35.5. It's Courtland Sutton, another guy. Looked pretty smooth in his drills. Thought he did well for himself at the combine. And obviously Calvin Ridley, like we talked about. I thought he dropped one, but I thought he did really well in the gauntlet drills. He kept a straight line. And he didn't test amazingly athletically. And a lot of people who are numbers guys are talking about how he didn't do great in the athletic drills. And I was a little surprised. His vert was only 31 inches, which is the bottom 7 percentile of the position. And that's really eye-opening. Because when you watch the tape, I thought he would have more ups than that, more jump than that. His broad jump, only 110 inches. So obviously his lower body explosiveness, at least for how I felt, did not live up to par. But that doesn't drop him down the list. You watch the tape, you can see the route running ability. You see how he creates his separation. He runs a 4.43, which is a good time. Doesn't drop him at all, but I do think athletically he could have done better. But I don't think he's somebody who's going to fall. I still have him as my wide receiver one from everything that I've seen. And again, we talked about Christian Kirk. I thought the 3-cone drill, I thought he was going to do really well in that, and he just did not. But he still came in there, and he ran a solid 40. His 40-yard dash was 4.47. He is quicker than he is fast, and I thought his change of direction on tape is much better than what he did at the combine. But he's over 200 pounds now, just under 6 foot. He's going to be one of those slot guys, and he will be effective at the NFL level. And you have guys like Auden Tate, man. Now, Auden Tate, you weren't expecting him to go into the combine and run anywhere in the 4.4s. You were hoping that he could run in the 5.5 or in the 4.5s, somewhere in the mid 4.5s. He comes in, he runs a 4.68, and then he runs somewhere in the 4.7s, and that's just not good for a wide receiver. And I get it. He's 6'4", 7/8", so he's almost 6'5", and he's 228 pounds. That's an excellent size for the position. He has long, long arms, but he didn't even touch the double digits in percentile in the 40, the vert, or the broad. So the explosiveness is not there. Is he going to be able to create separation? Is he just the next Kelvin Benjamin? It just was not a good look for Auden Tate, and I'm wondering where he will go now in the draft. But that we'll see. And that's the process. That's what we love about draft season. Another thing that we love about draft season is things are unpredictable. So let's move into the tight ends. Now, I think something that was unpredictable was a guy by the name of Mike Gesicki out of Penn State. Now, obviously you know who I'm talking about. Mike Gesicki, I did not in a million years think he was going to run a 4.55, but he did. And I'm looking at his mock draftable right now. It literally, so mock draftable, I encourage you to go to the website. It's excellent. But it's basically a graph that's a circle, and it has each category. And however well they did in the category, one piece, kind of like a pizza pie, of that circle will be filled all the way to the top. If they did poor in the category, it'll be more towards the median of the circle. Mike Gesicki's combine is basically all, the entire pie is basically covered except for his weight, because he did come in at 247 pounds, which is not ideal. And we know Gesicki struggles with his blocking. He did all throughout college. That's not what he is. And people are comparing him to Jimmy Graham. I don't know if he'll be as dynamic as Jimmy Graham, although he tested very, very well. But he is a big body. This is a passing league where you have guys like Evan Ingram going in the first round last year after a fantastic combine. So something like Mike Gesicki could be used in that sort of position. I think Ingram's a better blocker than Gesicki is personally, but Gesicki, look at these numbers right here. His 40, 4.54, 92 percentile. Vert, 41.5, 98 percentile. Broad, 129 inches, 96 percentile. That's almost 11 feet. His 3-cone, 6.76. That's 98 percentile for tight ends. That's better than most of the receivers. Absolutely outrageous. His bench, 22 reps, 65 percentile. Again, not known for his quote-unquote play strength, especially in the trenches. I haven't watched or evaluated much of Mike Gesicki. I've watched college football. I've seen him there, and maybe I've done like 2 games on him. I didn't do an actual evaluation, but I did not think he would have these kind of numbers. But mad props to the kid for showing up at the combine, balling out. And he really might have talked himself into the first round, because this tight end group, kind of like I was talking about that wide receiver group behind Calvin Ridley, it's similar. Because there isn't somebody who just jumped out at you. Somebody who was like, hey, I'm going to be the first overall pick at this position. You have guys like Hayden Hurst from South Carolina. You have guys like Dallas Goedert, or even Jalen Samuels, who's a Swiss Army knife, played running back, H-back, tight end for North Carolina State. Mark Andrews from Oklahoma. But Gesicki, I think he separated himself here. It's not crazy to say. With these athletic testing, a lot of people are running back to the film to see if he plays to this. He's a long strider. We saw that while he was running the 40, covering the ground, but he obviously took his preparation seriously. So good on Mike Gesicki for showing up at the combine and balling out. Then you also have guys like Dalton Schultz, the Stanford Cardinal. sure he is also intriguing coming from a school like that, a smart player. We have Hayden Hurst coming out of South Carolina like we talked about before. Hayden Hurst came in, he did well on the broad jump, tested in the 81 percentile, same as Dalton Schultz with 120 inches, which is 10 feet, so good for him. Just over 7 with 719 in the 3-cone. Not spectacular, but still a lot of people are talking about Hayden Hurst as a day 2 pick. And then just think about guys, Tyler Conklin shows his lower body explosiveness, tests in 92% of the vertical, 38 inches. It's better than some of these receivers out there. So you have some of these intriguing prospects at this position. And I look at Troy Fumagalli. Now, Troy Fumagalli, someone who no one thought he was going to come in here, run a fast 40. He doesn't even run the 40. But he comes in, and he's sub 250, which is not good. And he only puts up 14 reps on the bench, which is tested in the 5 percentile of the position. Not a great look for Troy Fumagalli, especially when you consider his Big Ten tight end brethren in Mike Gesicki absolutely dominated. So not great. But we're going to move away from the tight ends. Now, I don't think this tight end year is as good as last year when you had David Njoku, athletic freak coming out of Miami. Obviously, Evan Ingram, who is essentially a wide receiver, but I think he has better blocking than he gets credit for the New York Football Giants. And obviously, O.J. Howard, who had a pretty solid season down in Tampa Bay. The offensive linemen. Got to start with 2 guards that really come to mind. First, have to start with Quenton Nelson. Now, Quenton Nelson, coming out of the one and only Notre Dame, probably one of my favorite schools, and I got the chance to watch so much Quenton Nelson this year because I try to watch a lot of Notre Dame tape. But Quenton Nelson puts 35 up on the bench press, but I think the lasting impression, Quenton Nelson, the thing that I loved about this kid wasn't just the fact that he put up 35 bench reps, that he seemed to do very, very well in the interviews, but it was a quote that he had. And that quote from the Jersey kid, gotta mention that, was, I don't just want to defeat my opponent. It was something like this. I want to take his will to play the sport of football away from him. And that just, I love that. And I would love Quenton Nelson on the Giants. Now, is he worth the number 2 pick? It's hard to say a guard is worth the number 2 pick, especially with teams trying to get quarterbacks and you're going to have trades and things of that nature. But wouldn't you love to see Quenton Nelson block him for Eli Manning? If there's a way the Giants could trade back, get him, I'm not sure how it would work. There's still a lot that's going to happen for the New York Football Giants. And I shouldn't just be going on a Giants rant. This is a full NFL podcast, but my Giant fandom is coming out. But Quenton Nelson, absolute animal, shows up with the bench press, but he was beat out. He was beat out by Will Hernandez, who had 37 bench press reps. 2 more, testing the 97th percentile. Now, Will Hernandez, I thought he was moving well in the drills as well. And he's not somebody who is overly fast. He runs a 5.15, which is excellent for his size. 6'2", 327 pounds, which is unique because he dropped, I think, 10 plus pounds. I want to say it was like 13 pounds since the Senior Bowl. He came in, I think, at 340 at the Senior Bowl. So obviously he wanted to run that fast 40, and he was able to get that done. He has the work ethic. I think this is the kind of guy who's going to be one of those foundational Pro Bowl type of guards. Somebody who could fit into a gap scheme, a power scheme, pull, and just annihilate people. Now, he has short arms, 32-inch arms. So he's meant for the inside, where when you look at Quenton Nelson, he comes in with 33-plus arms. People might be talking about trying to move him to tackle. I say you put him in that middle at that left guard spot, and he just solidifies your offensive line like that. But people are going to explore that. Will Hernandez, man, I'm telling you, I love watching this kid. He also has that neck pad thing. He at least did down at the Senior Bowl, which is just intimidating, the Mike Allstott kind of look. So I really love what I get to see from Will Hernandez coming from University of Texas at El Paso, not to be confused with the University of Texas at San Antonio, which some poor soul was, and Marcus Davenport made him look like a dope. Anyways, moving on to another player I felt like he did really, really well in the drills, just like Will Hernandez, and that is James Daniels coming out of Iowa. And we know Iowa offensive linemen are coached very, very well by Kirk Ferentz, but he had his hands up the whole time. He was very, very smooth with his lateral movements. I thought he looked really, really good doing all of these things. Comes in at 306 pounds, just over 6'3", with 33 and 3/4 inch arms, which tests an 87th percentile for offensive centers. His 3-cone was 7.29, which tests in the 94th percentile of centers. So when I look at James Daniels, I think he's somebody who could squeak into the end of the first round, potentially high second-round pick. Something along those lines. You know he's smart, you know he's coached well, and he came to the combine, did better than a lot of people probably expected. It looked really good in the drills, better than the majority of other linemen that were going through the drills. So James Daniels, good on you. Brian O'Neill, former tight end at a Pitt. Now, the thing about Brian O'Neill, you figured he would come in and just test amazingly because he is a former tight end. He has those type of movement skills. A lot of people were mocking him to be in the first round not that long ago. And I remember going down to the Senior Bowl thinking, okay, this guy, maybe he's a fringe first round, but let's see. And he kind of got dominated out there. I was really, really surprised. But he showed up here, and he put a show on. He runs a 4.8 240, which is top 98 percentile of the tackles. He knew all these kind of things were going to happen. His athletic testing was going to be off the charts. But he weighs sub 300 at 297 pounds. So you want him to put more weight on. Where are you going to play a guy like Brian O'Neill? Would you trust him? His 34 and 1/8 inch arms. Would you trust him as a left tackle? No, not when he gets bullied like I saw at least at the Senior Bowl. He's going to need some polish, but with these kind of athletic traits, he's somebody that will be intriguing and teams will explore. Connor Williams, another very, very good athlete, and we know his 2016 tape was so much better than his 2017 tape because he was dealing with injuries. We know he was a good athlete. So what does he do? He puts it on display. Runs a 5.05 40, top 89 percentile. His vert, 34 inches, which is ridiculous for a tackle who weighs 296 pounds. That's 96th percentile. Broad, 112 inches, 92nd percentile. So I think he showed up, did well again. Sub 300 pounds. You would like for him to weigh a little bit more, especially if you want him to be your left tackle in the league, even your right tackle. That is very, very light. But you know this is not the playing weight of these guys. Everyone is aware of that. They shed a lot of weight, so they run very fast, and then they bulk right back up to their playing weight. That's where all this kind of becomes, I don't want to say a farce, but there's definitely, you know how to play the game kind of element to it. Colton Miller, another player who came into the combine and I don't want to say surprised, but just performed very, very well. Colton Miller tested in the 94th percentile of the 40-yard dash with a 4.95 at 6'8", 309 pounds. 34 and 1/8 inch arms, almost 11 inch hands, over 10 feet on the broad jump, which is 99th percentile. Think about that for a second. That's absolutely ridiculous. His 3-cone was 7.34, 94th percentile. So Colton Miller raising some eyebrows here with his athletic testing and his very, very intriguing size. I also look at some of the guys on the offensive line that didn't really do that well. First, we want to talk about Jamarco Jones. Now, Jamarco Jones, don't really exactly know what to make of him. You're going to put him at tackle. You're going to put him at guard. What's going to happen with this? When you look at him, he comes in, 299 pounds. It's not exactly ideal guard weight right there. 6'4". He has long arms, which is good, 35 and 1/8. So he breaks that 35 barrier. Runs a 5.5, which is about the bottom 10 percentile right there. And he jumps about 102 inches. Doesn't really, I mean, the jumping, the lower body explosion, you want them to be explosive in their lower half, but you're not expecting these guys who weigh about 300 pounds to jump very, very far. But I just thought Jamarco Jones didn't have the best combine, but it wasn't as bad as poor Mr. Orlando Brown. Now, Orlando Brown, a lot of people are talking about him on draft Twitter about how terrible his combine really was. Now, he came in at 6'7", 7/8", 345 pounds, and just looked sloppy. He has very, very long arms, a wingspan of 85 and 1/8, 35-inch arms, but his 40-yard dash was almost 6 seconds. It was a 5.85. His vert, he didn't even break 20, and he just did not look tight at all, which you wouldn't expect an offensive lineman to, but he was very, very sloppy looking. But that's not the worst part. So, okay, you're an offensive lineman. What's the one drill that you should do really well in? The bench press. And he came in, and he only did 14 reps on the bench, which is terrible. That's very, very bad for an offensive lineman. He only gets 14 done, and you look at some of these other wide receivers even. Go to the wide receiver position, and they have guys who benched 10 reps more. Kuron White coming out of West Virginia. Anthony Miller did 22. Jamon Moore did 21. Equanimeous St. Brown did 20. So he was somebody who was being mocked a lot to be in the first round. And he's lucky to even be a day 2 pick now because of this combine. A lot of the questions surrounding him was, how fast are his feet? Can he protect the blind side of a quarterback? Should he be moved inside? But now with the subpar combine, I don't think anybody's had a worse combine than Orlando Brown. And it's unfortunate. But it's fortunate for other people. Because Orlando Brown's dissension equals a rise for other tackle prospects. Guys like Mike McGlinchey, who you know did very, very well in the interview portions of this. I didn't even know he was Matt Ryan's cousin until about a week ago. Terrell Crosby comes in with 35-plus inch arms. Another player who more than likely will be getting higher on the board as Orlando Brown falls down, as well as Connor Williams, Colton Miller. So where some people might suffer, other people might be gifted. Story of the world there. Let's move to the defensive side of the ball. First, talk about the defensive line, and we have to talk about Maurice Hurst, who is a top 3 interior defensive lineman in this draft. He wasn't able to test at the combine. So he has a heart issue, and they didn't allow him to test, and he had to go back. He stayed there, I want to say, for the defensive line testing. He has to go back to Michigan and get his heart evaluated. I just hope everything's okay, because we've seen in the past basketball players and other athletes lose their careers over heart issues that they weren't even aware of. So we hope for all the best. First, defensive lineman I want to talk about, though, when it comes to his drills and how aggressive and violent he was in his drills, is Nathan Shepard, man. And Nathan Shepard, if you don't know him, because there's not a lot of tape on YouTube about Nathan Shepard, well, you're kind of missing out. He's from Fort Hays State. Now, this is a Division II school, and the reason he's there is because he is from Canada, so he wasn't highly recruited. He's a little bit of an older prospect because he had to work and do things like that. But he goes to Fort Hays State. Not a lot of people know who he is. Goes down to the Senior Bowl and absolutely dominates the one-on-one drills. Beating up Division I offensive linemen until he breaks his hand. Now, his hand's all better now. Just about. It will be by the time the season starts. He didn't do the bench press. But this guy is 6'3", 3/4", 315 pounds. And I'm telling you, he looks so well. He might have like 10% body fat. Maybe. He just looks like an ideal defensive lineman. And when I talk about his aggressiveness, how violent he is at the point of attack, he really is. And this is somebody who a lot of people, at least their mock drafts, I do fan speak for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I do the daily mock draft, NFL daily mock draft. Nate Shepard's always around like the 7th round. And people are going to adjust after seeing him at the combine. They should have already adjusted after seeing him at the Senior Bowl. He should be a day 2 pick. Maybe late 2nd, early 3rd round pick. And he's kind of raw, but I watched Fort Hays State tape. I was able to acquire some. And he's getting double, triple teamed consistently. And yes, he's not a fully polished product. He used a lot of force to win, and he was able to do that at that level. He won't be able to do that at the NFL. But his tools and the movement skills that he has, when you saw that on the on-field drills at the combine, it's very, very intriguing, man. Somebody that a lot more people should be talking about, but he's not getting the necessary buzz that he deserves. And then Taven Bryan. Now, Taven Bryan is intriguing for other reasons. He's coming from UF. He's somebody a lot of people have been talking about, but they're afraid that he's just a one-gap penetrator. And I can see why, because that's what he was doing down in Florida. It literally was like every play he would just penetrate the gap. But he's 6'5", 291 pounds. Ran a 4.98, which is top 79 percentile. That doesn't seem like it's great, but when you're that big, 6'5", 291, that's really good to break the 5 barrier. But then he comes in, and his lower body explosiveness is absolutely ridiculous. Almost jumps a 10-foot broad, 119 inches. It's 98th percentile of the position. Vertical, 35 inches. 97th percentile. His 3-cone was 7.12. So his movement skills and what he possesses athletically is going to be very, very intriguing. I remember I did Caleb Brantley last year coming out of Florida, and he slid to like the 6th round because of off-the-field issues where domestic violence, I think, was surrounding him. But I think he was proved innocent, so the Browns ended up getting a deal on him. He was another quick one-gap penetrator, kind of in the ilk of Taven Bryan, but Taven Bryan's a much better athlete than Caleb Brantley. And he might have talked himself into high day 2 praise. People may even want to take him in the 1st round. He puts on some more weight. How is he going to do holding and anchoring blocks? It's something that I feel like he needs work on a little bit, but he is an incredibly explosive athlete, and he was able to put that on display at the Combine. And we have Vita Vea, man. Vita Vea is so fun to watch. If you have not watched Vita Vea's tape, go and watch it now. It's not always consistent, but he's somebody who just ragdolled people. And he showed up on the bench press and put up 41 bench press reps, which is stupid. The only person to outdo him was Harrison Phillips. Now, Harrison Phillips had himself one hell of a Combine as well. But Vita Vea, definitely somebody, going to be a first-round pick, somebody who's going to be able to clog gaps, take double teams on, penetrate, and just be an absolute animal. It's just kind of coaching staff kind of harness everything that he has to maximize what he can be, because he can be very good. People do lazy comparisons, say, oh, well, he's just a big two-gapper coming out of Washington. He must be Danny Shelton. No, he is not just Danny Shelton. Just compare the tape and you'll be able to see that. Harrison Phillips, though, as we talked about, the bench press master of the 2018 NFL Combine with 42 bench press reps, actually showed up and did really well in the three-cone, a 7.28, which is 91st percentile. Jumped over 30 inches in the broad at 307 pounds. I mean, the vertical, I apologize, 80th percentile. So he's 6'3", 307 pounds, 33 and 7/8 inch arms, with 10 and 3/8 inch hands. Those are massive hands right there. Harrison Phillips, he can move, man. He can move. And he's very, very big. He's very, very strong. Another kid coming out of Stanford, a very, very good school. So he's somebody else turning some heads, rising up some draft boards. As is B.J. Hill. And B.J. Hill, he played on that really, really stout defensive front, probably the best defensive front in the 2017 NCAA. I mean, you have Bradley Chubb and Kentavious Street on the edges, and then inside you got Justin Jones and B.J. Hill. They're up there. They're definitely in consideration. But B.J. Hill came in, and I did not see this. I've watched B.J. Hill's tape. I thought he showed some explosiveness, but definitely not a 4.99 40. And he was able to get sub-5 at 311 pounds, 6'3". That's impressive. That's very impressive. His three-cone was 7 2/8, which is 91st percentile of the position. So obviously his movement skills is better than what I thought I saw on tape. So I want to applaud B.J. Hill. That's me clapping, just a little golf clap right there. Bench press 35 reps, also impressive. Good job, B.J. Hill. So let's move on, though. Let's move on just a little bit to the edge position. So I've been scouting the edge position for the 2018 draft guide, which you guys should go and purchase. We are doing pre-sale right now. It hits on April 1st. Go to the website right now and you can get it for $5 off. You should definitely go and pursue that because we've been putting in quality work from over 50 scouts on so many players, ran by Dan Hatman, former NFL scout. It's a really good thing. You should definitely check it out. But I just came out with the 5 edge rushers on Inside the Pylon that I feel have risen due to what they did at the Combine. And nobody else more than Harold Landry. And this kind of goes back to Harold Landry's 2016 tape. It was absolutely dominating. People thought he was going to come out, but he decided to go back to school. He had 16.5 sacks that year and 22 tackles for a loss. But it's 2017. He suffered a high ankle sprain, and it really hindered his ability to get after the quarterback. Because obviously, like I've talked about a few different times, you need your ankles to rush the passer, especially when you're a bendy guy like Harold Landry. That's how he plays the game. That's how he thrives. So he goes to the Combine, and he absolutely shows up. And I couldn't be more happy. He comes in at 6'2" and 3/8, 252 pounds. That's really light for an edge player. But he tests off the charts. 4.64 40 at his 87th percentile. His vert is 36 inches. His broad, just under 10 feet. And his three-cone is 6.88, which is the top 95th percentile, only beat by Sam Hubbard, and we'll get into him in a little bit. Also killed the 60-yard shuttle at the 99th percentile of 11.35, and the 20-yard shuttle, 91st percentile at 4.19. I had him winning the 60-yard shuttle, or the 20-yard, one of the shuttles in my pre-draft article, so I'm happy about that as well. Does 24 reps on the bench as well. He showed the movement skills in the drills, though, that you want to see. He played linebacker, did all the linebacker drills as well, and showed that he has those kind of movement skills. You can tell the ankle is healthy. You have to trust that 2016 tape. And I don't want to say just completely throw away the 2017 tape, but you kind of have to. If you think that injury is the reason that he was playing that way and didn't have the year that you expected him to have, and he doesn't have the injury anymore, then he's not going to be hindered. So Harold Landry really did well for himself. And I'm just happy that he did. And then we got to get into the one, the only, the alien, that is Josh Sweat. And Josh Sweat, to think that somebody who is 6'4" and 3/4", 251 pounds, can test the way that he did is asinine. His wingspan, plus 84 inches, 98th percentile for an edge, over 34-inch arms, over 10-inch hands. And he runs a 4.53 40. What? A 4.53 40 with 39.5 on the vert. And 124 inches on the broad. All over 90%, the 40 being 98th percentile. Josh Sweat, 1.55 10-yard split, which is comparable to Antonio Brown and A.J. Green's combine numbers. You got to think about how much he improved his stock. Now, we all know the problem with Sweat is, well, two things, really. The main thing being the medicals. He dislocated his knee and tore his ACL his senior year of high school. And FSU still let him come on. He was one of the most highly recruited prospects of that year. And he's been regaining form. He had one cleanup surgery while at Florida State. Another issue was, now this isn't his fault, but I felt like he played a little bit out of position in college. He wasn't always consistently on the edge like you'd see Bradley Chubb or something along those lines. He would line in line sometimes as a 4 or even as a 3 technique in a 4-point stance and things of that nature. So he didn't consistently line up as an edge. That's not his fault. It's not something to really worry about with him. It's just maybe that's why he didn't have these glaring sack numbers. But Josh Sweat, man, he was one of the first guys that I was assigned last year when we started prepping for this guide. And I really liked this tape. I really did. I did not, in a million years, though, think he was going to run a 4.53. Now, I saw on some plays where he shows the backside pursuit where he just hustles, and you're like, wow, that guy can really move. But 4.53 at that size, bravo. Bravo, Josh Sweat, because you are an alien. As I said in my piece, as long as teams are comfortable enough with the medical evaluations, you can go as high as early day 2, possibly squeak into day 1. But I must say, though, it is apparent that Mr. Sweat, if that is your real name, you may be on the wrong planet, because you are an alien with those kind of athletic numbers at your size. Then we have Sam Hubbard. And Sam Hubbard did not run the 40, and he was pretty candid about why. He basically said that, he didn't say this verbatim, but he basically said like he wasn't ready to run the 40. He's going to do it at his pro day, which is something that I can look at him and be like, all right, March 23rd, see what Sam Hubbard's 40 is like. And again, he's not the most straight line kind of speed. He's not going to run a 4.5 or anything like that. But what I talked about with Sam Hubbard, and I've been saying this for quite some time now, is Sam Hubbard has ridiculous change of direction. And he thrived in stunts and twists along that very talented Ohio State front. And he really put that on display here because his 3-cone, best of the group, 97th percentile at a 6.84, which is absolutely ridiculous. Shows his change of direction, his lateral agility, and his overall control of his body, which he also showed in those drills. He was just very controlled and very smooth. I didn't think his athletic numbers would jump off outside of the 3-cone. His broad jump was sub 10. 60th percentiles, vertical was 35 inches, 74th percentile. But like I've been saying, man, I don't feel like he's getting the kind of love that at least I feel for Sam Hubbard. I think that he is a very a very good prospect, somebody who can come in and he's not going to let you down. And he does have upside to get 9, 10 sacks. I don't think that's ridiculous. And yeah, he's not the best athlete out of all of these guys. He's not as good of an athlete as Josh Sweat or Lorenzo Carter. But his hustle is off the charts. His mental processing, his ability to key and diagnose, his ability to use his hands to disengage blocks, they're absolutely ridiculous. Especially when you consider the fact that he was recruited as a safety. He's very new to playing the trenches. He grew into his body. It seems like he's been playing it his whole life, though. But Sam Hubbard, man, he's one of my favorite players in this draft, and I hope he gets to go in the first day to a team like New England, Tennessee, or whomever. He's been one of my favorite prospects to watch. And then you got Lorenzo Carter, man. Lorenzo Carter came in, and he was the player that I chose to win the 40-yard dash from the edge group. But he was beat out by Leon Jacobs of Wisconsin. But his athletic profile 6'6", 250 pounds, 34-inch arms, 10 3/8-inch hands, with the kind of speed of a 4.5 official 40. Jumped to 10.8 in the broad, 36-inch vertical. That's absolutely ridiculous. He has so much upside, and he's relatively raw. I mean, he doesn't take on blockers all that well. He doesn't set the edge as well as you would like him to, but I think he is someone who's so moldable right now, someone with so much upside. He should be available in day 2. Roquan Smith gets all the love because he is one of the top 5, top 10 talents in this draft, no doubt. But those other players on that Georgia defense are something. And I think Lorenzo Carter is somebody who's been somewhat slept on throughout this pre-draft process so far. And his athletic testing, he's not being slept on anymore after this combine, though. I'll tell you that much. Testing the 98th percentile for the 40 and the broad jump. Absolutely ridiculous. At 250 pounds. And I'm glad he showed up too, because he's somebody else I've been, I had a very high grade on him. I still do. For the draft guide. I'm a fan of Lorenzo Carter, and I acknowledge the fact that he is somewhat raw, needs help with the nuances of playing edge, taking on blocks, maybe needs a little bit more sand in his ass, but I'm telling you, he does have incredible, immense amount of athleticism, and now a lot of people know that because they watched the combine. And then we had Adaruna. Now, Adaruna is interesting. Why is Adaruna interesting? I watched his tape, and he's another player who was somewhat out of position being used. I mean, he played at Tulane, so you know they're not recruiting like crazy over there. But he played somewhat 5 technique sometimes. He played in line. He wasn't always on the edge. But one thing was apparent. He was a really, really good athlete. And I could see that on the film. And he comes to the combine, and he shows that because he tests 93rd percentile of the 40 with a 4.6, 94th percentile of the vert, 38.5, and 96th percentile with 128 inches on the broad jump. I think Adaruna really kind of turned heads, got people to notice who he was, because a lot of people probably didn't have him on the radar as much. And if schools did, they're probably disappointed that he tested as well as he did, because now people are aware of him. But again, kind of played out of position in college, wasn't exactly somebody who jumped off the film at me, but I was able to get his evaluation done. I thought he would have a good combine. I didn't think he'd have this good of a combine, but good on him, and also massive hands, almost 11 inches, 34-inch arms, somebody who did well for himself in Indianapolis. Then we have Kylie Fitz, and Kylie Fitz, I haven't watched much tape for a guy who's been doing the edges. I didn't have the evaluations of Kylie Fitz, so I didn't do him or his cross-check, so I just watched about 2 games of him just to kind of get refreshed with him. And it's very impressive that he was able to put up 31 reps on the bench. I don't want to sit here and talk about his film because, again, I'm not as well-versed on how he played. At least not like I am with a lot of the other players. But he ran an 82nd percentile and a 4.69 in the 40. Comes in the 91st percentile of the bench press with 31 reps, which was the most of anybody of the position group. So I look at that and I go, wow, this guy really cared. This guy really prepared. And I know Kylie Fitz, one thing I do know, he's dealt with a lot of injuries. So he dealt with a lot of injuries, show that this guy seems like, at least the little film I watched, and seemed like somebody who is going to compete 110% every time. I've heard other people that I really, really respect in the business and draft Twitter and things of that nature respect Kylie Fitz. So I'm really pulling for him if that's the case, if he's somebody who wins with this competitive toughness, this competitive nature. That's what I love to see. But I just haven't personally seen enough film on him to weigh in on that. And then we have the enigma of enigmas, Mr. Arden Key. Arden Key comes in here, and he doesn't run the 40, which I thought was somewhat peculiar, because I thought he could have done really well with that. He's an explosive athlete. He weighs in at 238 pounds, claims that he played once at 270 pounds. It just, everything seems, just makes me think too much when it comes to his situation. Why did you leave the program? Why are all these questions surrounding you? Do you love football? Why was your playing weight up from 30 pounds? How did you gain 30 pounds? How did you lose 30 pounds in a month? Just so many things surround Arden Key that I just don't see how teams are going to feel comfortable taking him in the first, second round. Yes, he's explosive. Yes, he shows some of that, especially on his 2016 tape. It was intriguing. Then all of this happens, 2017 tape. And then he comes, runs a 7.163 cone. It's about 62nd percentile. It's not all that great, especially when you look at all of the other people. Now, I don't know how he did. I don't know how he did in all of the other drills or all of the other combine events, the interviews, because that was the most important part, and that's what we talked about. But I do think it's just so much surrounding him that I don't know if I'd want to invest that much in Arden Key. I think that's a consensus thought right now. Dorrance Armstrong, another player who I felt looked good in the on-field positional drills, did some of the linebacker drills. Supposedly he played with a partially torn ACL this year, so mad props to the guy. He didn't test overly well in anything, but I thought he looked smooth in the drills. Again, he's the one who has a relationship with Baker Mayfield, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's when Baker decided to grab an appendage of his and say something to Mr. Dorrance Armstrong when they had a slight disagreement. And I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about by this point. But let's move on to linebackers and not talk about Baker Mayfield grabbing his junk. And we have Shaq Griffin. Now, Shaq Griffin, the story of the Combine, rightfully so. No one thought he was going to come in here and do what he did. Especially when you think about the fact that he didn't even have an invite to the Combine until recently. And Shaquem Griffin comes in and puts 20 reps on the bench press with one hand. Runs a 40-yard dash of 4.38, top 99th percentile, fastest linebacker at the Combine. Absolutely ridiculous. Shaquem Griffin, I'm not sure where he's going to go, if he's going to be early day 3, if he squeaked into day 2. All I know is somebody I'm always going to pull for, somebody everyone's always going to pull for. He's going to be a special teams nightmare and somebody who's going to give you 110% every damn time he steps on the field. That's just somebody that you have to love. Then we look at guys like Roquan Smith, came in, ran a good 40. Again, he's going to be a top 10 pick. He's just an absolute animal, ridiculous range. Goes in, runs a 4.51, which is the top 92nd percentile, 236 pounds. Wingspan, 77 inches. I mean, he's just somebody that you love to watch and you're going to love to have on your team. And then you got Tremaine Edmunds, man. Tremaine Edmunds, this guy is incredibly long. He's 19 years old, and he is just somebody who tested sort of off the charts, especially when it comes to his physical stature. And it's crazy to think that he's still growing into his body. But 6'4.5", 96 percentile, weight 253 pounds, wingspan 83 inches, 34 plus inch arms, and ran a 4.54, 91st percentile. That's really absolutely ridiculous. Leighton Vander Esch, another player that's getting a lot of buzz. I look at Leighton and I say, damn, he showed up and he balled out at the Combine. 6'4", 256 pounds. Somebody who's going to be moving up boards. His vertical jump, almost 40 inches. That's 98th percentile. 124 broad, 96th percentile. So athletically, he tested off the charts. And I wonder where he's going to fall now. Because the top linebacker is Roquan Smith. And then you got Tremaine Edmunds. Vander Esch, I don't feel like should crack that. But after testing athletically, where will he fall? Will there be 3-4 linebackers drafted in the first round? Yet to be seen. But it's definitely a question. It's definitely something I love to think about as well. Genard Avery is somebody that I did not know really anything about. He comes to the Combine, he tests very, very well. 124 inches on the broad, 4.59, 40-yard dash. And then I see guys I really respect, Jonah Tolles, writing about him. So he's somebody I have to do more film on. From the little I've seen, he looks like somebody who I feel like is going under the radar. But I'm going to have to do my own evaluation on that. I think Josey Jewell coming in and doing so well in the 3-cone was something not a lot of people expected. Josey Jewell out of Iowa, just an absolute beast there. A lot of people know him for the guy who just kept getting burned by Saquon Barkley in that game that was at Iowa. But he comes in here, athletically, not a lot of people are expecting a lot. Runs a 4.82. I think that was par for the course for what we all expected from Josey Jewell. But he ran a 6.8 3-cone, which is top 93 percentile of linebackers. And it just kind of surprised me. And he's one of those hard-working guys, one of those guys who teammates just praise, somebody that I will be pulling for. Then we have Matthew Thomas. I don't really know much about Matthew Thomas. I've watched a lot of Florida State football because Derek Nottie, Jacob Pugh, Josh Sweat, all guys that I've done evaluations on. And I haven't seen much about Matthew Thomas, but he just went down to the Combine, jumped a 41.5 vert, 131 inches in the broad jump, which is 97th percentile, 96th percentile on the vert. Runs a 4.58. It's going to turn heads. So just good for Matthew Thomas. And I'm realizing that I'm just rambling on right now. We're almost at an hour. So I'm going to try to fly through this. This is just kind of what happens when you put a microphone in front of my loud mouth, my stupid face. I just go on. But let's move to the cornerbacks, and specifically Denzel Ward. A lot of people's cornerback one. Is he going to run in the 4.3s? And the answer is yes, he is. 97th percentile with a 4.32. Jumps a 39 inch. Vert, 136 inches in the broad, which is the 98th percentile. So you could see how athletic he is. He's 5'10" and 7/8. So I look at Denzel, I say, you did what you needed to at the combine. It's kind of crazy when I look at these linebackers and these cornerbacks. They tested out of the roof. I didn't even really talk about Oren Burks or Dorian O'Daniel, Malik Jefferson, other three linebackers that played and tested really well here at the combine. You look at Chandon Sullivan of Georgia State, player that was not getting a lot of buzz, but he comes to the combine and shows off his pure athleticism, especially in the vertical jump and the broad jump, which were 93 and 97 percentile, respectively. That's 40, not as much. So I look at these guys, man. I look at these linebackers, corners, these safeties. They tested incredibly well. Except for Tavares McFadden. Now, Tavares McFadden, a lot of people were mocking him in the first round throughout the offseason. And he comes in here, man, he runs a 4.67, bottom 5 percentile, man. That's just terrible on the 40-yard dash. And I know he's bigger. He's 6'2", 204 pounds, but still, 204 pounds is not a lot. We didn't expect him to run in the 4.3s or anything like that, but a 4.67, you knew the combine was coming. I mean, that's just really, really bad. Really, really terrible for Tavares. Somebody who a lot of people thought was going to be first-round pick just a year ago. Now he's potentially going to be, somewhere in the day 3 range. Just shows, man, you got to earn every second. You got to earn everything. Jair Alexander, one of the best man-cover guys in the draft, struggled through injuries this year. But he comes in at above 5'10", which is good for Jair. Somebody who's probably going to thrive in the slot, runs a 4.38, jumps 35 in the vert, and 127 in the broad. With a 6.71 3-cone, which makes sense because, again, he's more than likely going to play in the slot. So he held his own water, held his weight there. Somebody that I felt like on the on-field drills did really well. Now, he didn't necessarily test all that well. He ran a 4.46, which is fine. His vertical was 32.5, which is not good at all for a corner. And he jumped 10 feet in the broad, which is just below average. But that's Dee Delaney. Dee Delaney was a transfer from the Citadel to the U. So he goes to the University of Miami. And I thought he just looked somewhat smooth in what I saw of the positional drills. I think Mayock and them were talking about him as well. So that's somebody that I just wanted to kind of give praise, somebody who didn't really have the combine numbers but looked smooth in the drills. And Carlton Davis, I thought he had solid numbers for a guy of his size, as did Josh Jackson. Those bigger kind of corners, those press corners. At least in Carlton Davis's case, it's more than likely what it's going to be. And Josh Jackson, Carlton Davis, good for them though. Showing up, not putting up spectacular numbers, but holding their own, and they are who they are, kind of thing. Respect it. Now we move on to the safeties. And we have Derwin James. Derwin James, a lot of people said he was going to just light up the combine, and for all intents and purposes, he really did. Now, people thought he was going to run in like the 4.3s, I think. He ran a 4.47, which is 82nd percentile. His vert was 40 inches. That's expected. He's an absolutely crazy athlete. We've seen the plays countless number of times of him jumping up in front of the quarterback and knocking the pass, and hopefully, if that happens to him in the NFL, Jalen Hurts won't catch it and then run. That was unfortunate for him. But he jumps 132 inches in the broad jump. It's 96th percentile. His lower body explosiveness, absolutely ridiculous. Gonna be a first-round pick. Gonna make a franchise happy. Then you have Minkah Fitzpatrick, somebody who didn't test as well athletically, but you know how good of an athlete and how good of a player he is. He also had his pro day today. But he ran a 4.46 40, and his vert was 33 inches. His broad was just over 10 feet. Not great numbers by any means. 14 reps on the bench. Really not that great. But he's not going to be sliding down boards. Minkah Fitzpatrick is going to be a top 10 pick, and he's going to be a very, very good, versatile NFL player. Fits into what the NFL is doing right now, where they want these hybrid linebackers, these guys who can cover, and these guys who can tackle. That's what Minkah Fitzpatrick is. I thought Terrell Edmunds, and that's Tremaine Edmunds' brother, who is a year older than him, I thought he had a really good combine. And that's not saying much, because I think everyone thought he had a really good combine. He comes in, huge hands. He's a year older than Tremaine. 4.47 40 at 217 pounds, 6 foot. 41.5-inch vert and a broad jump of 134 inches. That's 98th percentile and 97th percentile, respectively, for the jumps. So that's ridiculous for Terrell Edmunds. That is a great athlete. I don't know what that family has, but they really grew into their bodies, man, and they really are athletic human beings. So good for the Edmunds brothers. They both made themselves some money at the draft. I think Dane Cruikshank, who I had, and he's the kid from Arizona, if a lot of people don't really know who he is. I had him being drafted by the Giants late in the draft, in my mock draft, my pre-combine mock draft. He goes in there, man, and he kills the bench press. The bench press record for the safeties, 96th percentile with 25 reps. He does well in really all the other drills. 38.5 vert, 121, that's just over 10 feet in the broad. His 40 was a 4.41. The size of 6'1" and 1/4 and 209 pounds. That's somebody who I feel like made himself some money here, and the Giants won't be able to get him later in the draft now. And then we have Jessie Bates and Justin Reid. Jessie Bates and Justin Reid, two players that did very well that not a lot of people were really talking about. Justin Reid is the brother of Eric Reid, and he's somebody who really tested fantastically, off the charts. Ran in 4.4, 95th percentile. His 3-cone was a 6.65, which is absolutely ridiculous. Making himself some money, man. Lower body explosiveness. Showing up to the combine. And we've seen people have great combines before and get skyrocketed up boards. And a lot of these guys are able to do that. And you have Jessie Bates, 4.5, 35.5-inch vert. It's 3-cone, 6.78. It's 81st percentile. Not a lot of people were talking about him before this, coming out of Wake Forest on that defense with Mr. Duke Ejiofor, who unfortunately didn't really do anything at the combine. I was looking forward to seeing him. Not that he's a great athlete. I just been another pass rusher that I love to watch. But that's basically it. I really tried to get through that latter half quickly because I've been rambling here for a while. And you're probably sick of my voice, if you're still listening, that is. But we have one more segment I came up with. And this one segment is something for just fun. It's fun to me, all right? So it's draft season. There's smoke screens everywhere. All these false narratives are being pushed by whomever. So let me throw one random-ass truth out to you that you may have never heard before. So this random truth could be about anything. It could be about entertainment. It could be about art. And I'm going to try to do this a lot. But since it's draft season, I feel like it's fitting. So let's jump into that right now. And this random truth is the leading role in Forrest Gump was originally offered to this actor. And this actor is Pulp Fiction's own John Travolta.
Oh my God.
Exactly. Oh my God. I did not know that. That is a random truth that you may not have known. I hope you'd enjoy this show of me pontificating onto all of you about the combine. And there's a lot going on in the NFL. There's free agency coming up next week, and we're going to discuss all that. So I hope you enjoyed Breaking the Plane with Nick Filato. That is me. And please head over to Inside the Pylon and check out the 2018 draft guide that we have been working on for about a year now. And there's a lot of smart people, much smarter than me, working on this. So please go and check it out and get $5 off by pre-ordering it. Head to the website to see. Thank you so much for listening and have a lovely, lovely day.